The fighting type. They bolster a flurry of punches, but get scared the moment a bird comes along. The question is, can we beat a hardcore Nuzlocke with them? Rules are simple. If Pokemon faints, it's declared dead and can't be used. We're not allowed to overlevel past the gym leader's ace. We must play on set mode, and we are unable to use any items while we're in the battle. We start off this hardcore Nuzlocke with something that's very rare to see in these mono-type challenges. We actually get to pick a starter that we'll use, and that's going to be Chespin. We can then move forward onto Route 22, where there is an encounter there. It's a Riolu. Now, you might think you've got a 5% chance. That's pretty good. You're basically guaranteed to get it within 20 encounters. However, you would be wrong. It took me over 60 encounters before I managed to find this menace, and I gave him the name Arnold. Now, unfortunately, while he's in his Riolu state, he's not really much use to us. Therefore, we need to run around a lot, get him really happy with us, and we can evolve him into a Lucario. Now, normally I'd take my Pokemon to the level cap. However, I was literally 1 XP, and I could not be bothered leaving the gym to go and do it, so we're just going to go into the battle at 11. She leads with Surskit, and honestly, I'm not too scared of this thing. All I need to do is use a flurry of quick attacks, and I will eventually take this thing out. As you can see, it does 2 damage to me with it, so I can just carry on doing it. And even though I do get a crit to take it out on my second one, it really wouldn't have mattered anyway. With that though, we level up to 12 and we can take on the Pavilion. Now, my best move is still Quick Attack as I've not managed to get one better, therefore I'm just going to have to use it and hope that we get through. She does have a scary move though in Infestation. Infestation, although it doesn't do a lot of damage to me up front, it will do some percentage-based damage every turn, meaning I'm on a time limit to how long I can take it out. However, it turned out that time limit really didn't matter, as I was on basically half health when I eventually took her out. I probably could have had a heal and still won from here. Now we got our first gym badge, we can head on to Route 4. There's going to be a routes there. Now, not only is this thing a 5% encounter, it needs to be male in order for it to get the fighting type. Believe it or not though, we must have got some miracle, as I managed to get it in less than half the time it took me to get Riolu. The 50% gender chance helped me out, as my second one ended up being male, and we gave it the name Seabum. We then get given the TM for Return. Now, Return is a really useful move for this early game, as it's based on friendship. The more a Pokemon likes you, the more damage this move will do. And we've had to get friendship high already for our Lucario. We get to Sycamore's lab and he gives us a choice of 3 Pokemon. Therefore, we need a fighting type in Sumo Wrestler Squirtle. I then proceed on to Route 5. There, I'm able to run into a Pancham and I end up giving it the name Lou. We then speak to some guy who's looking after a Snorlax that's asleep, and apparently someone stole his flute. And I'll tell you what, I can believe it. Even though this guy has golden gates and a mansion, he wants $1,000 to let us into his house. We're literally 10-year-old children, and you're expecting us to have that sort of money? After getting through all that, we then managed to evolve Ronit into a Quilladin, but unfortunately, he's still not fighting type, so we can't use him yet. We then make it onto Route 7, where Krogunk is. Now, on Bulbapedia, it says there is grass for a 35% chance for this Pokemon. However, I've had a look at the route, and honestly, I cannot see where this grass is. Therefore, I have to go through the flowers, and it's another 5% chance to get him. After I've aged by 15 years, we managed to find one, catch it, and call it Jay. We then make our way to Connecting Cave, where we manage to run into and catch a Meditite. It gets the name Z's. We then end up on Route 8, where we run into a Mindfu and give it the name Frank. We then make our way to Glittering Cave, where we run into a Machop. However, this thing proves itself as quite a formidable foe. I end up trying to lower its accuracy with Mudslap and Jay. This unfortunately means at one point he does manage to hit Lou with a critical hit low sweep. And obviously Lou isn't strong enough to withstand it, so he goes down. We do eventually catch him, but unfortunately we have got a killer on the team. With that news though, we have to carry on and take on the second gym leader. He leads with Amora as I lead with Arnold. Now, I actually did some super training with Arnold to get his attack up just enough, so when we use Power Up Punch, the Amora goes down. After that, all he's got left is his Tyrant, but obviously it's still weak to fighting moves, therefore we just need to hit it twice and we've taken it out and beat the second gym. We then move on to Route 10 where we run into a Howlucha, catch it, and call it Dorian. We then end up going to the Mega Evolution Tower, and we're asked if we found a suspicious stone. Obviously we say yes, but he doesn't believe us. Therefore I answer with no, and Tierno comes out, and he claims it was me that found it. This is really a ride or die type of guy. Since all that is over, we might as well go on to Gym 3, and we're actually battling a friend in Karina. She leads Mindfu, so I choose to lead with Dorian. Now, the reason I do this is simple. She's always going to go for Fake Out on the first turn. Dorian knows the move Encore. Encore will make it so it has to use Fake Out every subsequent turn as well. Now, Fake Out only works on the first turn that you've come out. Therefore, we are free to set up a few Swords Dance and annihilate her entire team. I truly am the best fighting type trainer out there. Apparently though, she couldn't accept the defeat, as when we scale the Mega Tower, she wants another battle against us. This time, Lucario versus Lucario. We get to see the beauty that is Mega Lucario, and obviously I smack her down. We then have one of her Lucarios come over, and it wants to be part of our team. Now unfortunately, I can't cheat on my own. Therefore, we've got to leave it here. We can then make our way to Route 12, where we run into a Heracross. Now, this thing has a move called Aerial Ace, and unfortunately for me, it actually ends up killing my Z's. Thankfully though, we do eventually manage to catch it. However, we now have 2 Murderers on our team. Murderer number 1 then evolves into a Macho. We then have Professor Sycamore tell us about Mega Evolution. Now he says it needs a strong bond. However, I fully disagree. All we need to do is smack a Mega Stone onto something and we can Mega Evolve it. We eventually get past his nonsense, and that means we can go on to the 4th gym leader, being Ramos. Now, Phil's actually crazy bulky and he resists grass type moves. Therefore, he's perfect to use against all Ramos's Pokemon. Plus, him having Aerial Ace, a flying type move, he is super effective against every single one of them. And the fact is, only his Go-Goat can take more than one of them before going down. Who would have thought? Halfway through the gym badges and it was incredibly easy. Knock knock. Who's there? It's My Time Morty telling you should subscribe and like the video. Careful of not doing it, there's a good chance you'll get chopped. Honestly, there's nothing really going on with the power station stuff. The only thing is that I had to box my Lucario because it was close to overleveling, but we get past it incredibly easy and can carry on. Since we had a free spot, I threw Ralts in it and he ended up evolving into Curlier. After that, I switch him out to Ronnie and we can finally evolve into a Chestnut. At last, he's got his fighting type, so we can use him in battle. I'll tell you what, he's actually a pretty good matchup for the next gym, as it's electric. He chooses to lead with Emolga, as I choose to lead with Arnold. The Emolga can do some okay damage to us, but it only takes us 2 returns to take it down. There was also a high chance that we would get hit with a static here, however, I had a Cherry Berry on to ensure this wouldn't happen. After this, he ends up sending out his Magneton. Now, I'm not going to one-shot this thing as it's got sturdy, therefore I decide to just go for a Power-Up Punch. This does some damage and gives me an attack boost for the next Pokemon. In that time, he just sets up an electrical terrain, and then the very next turn, I can take it out doing the same thing I did the previous one. He then sends out Heliolisk. However, Lucario's like a dog to a bone, so takes him out incredibly easily. We then run into some weird guy calling an alleyway a romantic spot. He's a bloody dirty-minded individual is what he is. Jay can now finally evolve into a Toxicroak, and it's almost as if it's perfect timing as we're ready to take on the Fairy Gym. She leads with Mawile. Obviously, I'm going to lead with our newly evolved Toxicroak. However, even though this is a Fairy Gym, she doesn't actually have any Fairy-type moves on Mawile. This means I'm free to set up a Swords Dance and take it out with 2 Brick Breaks. After that, she's got some Fairy Pokemon, but no Steel there. That means I'm free to use some Poison Jabs to take down the Mr. Mime. And Sylveon, being the poster child of fairies out there everywhere, that obviously falls as well. If the balls are stolen, we can't become friends with Pokemon. I'm just going to tell you now. For one, we've got N, who doesn't use Pokeballs and is pretty friendly with some Pokemon. And 2, if anyone is saying they can't be friends with you unless you show them your balls, you want to be really careful. It's really cold in here, isn't it, Morty? Well, no bloody wonder you've come into an ice cavern with short-sleeve t-shirts. We then managed to get our hands on a Dawnstone. That means Sebum can finally become a fighting type in Gallade. And with Gallade on our team, we can now go and take on the psychic trainer Olympia. She leads with Sigilif, so I lead with Arnold. On my first turn, I use a Swords Dance to raise my attack, and Sigilif uses Light Screen. The reason it does that is quite simple. I've set my Lucario up as a maxed out special attacker for later in the game. Once we've managed to deal with that, we can use 1 return and it takes the Sigilif out. Next up on the menu for obliteration is Slowking. Against Slowking, I set up yet another Swords Dance. Now this is because I know it's going to go for Yawn, therefore it's free for me to do so. After that, Return one-shots it and takes it down, but I do go to sleep. Luckily for me though, I had the foresight to equip a Chesto Berry, therefore it doesn't matter going into the next Pokemon. Meowstic puts up a pretty good fight, managing to flinch me with a Fake Out, but it only delays the inevitable. I crush it on the very next turn and have defeated Olympia with fighting types, eliminating everyone but Team Flare. This really is some Ginger Master Race sort of stuff. Now, I'm a fellow Ginger myself, but I can't allow you to take down everyone but Gingers. Therefore, we've got to battle Lysander. I lead with Sebum as he leads with his Mindfu. One Psycho Cut is more than enough to take this bugger down. We then have Murkrow come out, and I decide it's best to set up a Swords Dance here. However, it does manage to hit me for some pretty major damage with an Aerial Ace. Thankfully, I did equip a Citrus Berry, so I've got some health back from what I did have. And with the Swords Dance, X-Scissor is more than enough to take it out. Gyarados does then come out, but unfortunately for it, even with the Intimidate, it's not going to survive a Psycho Cut. The next and final Pokemon is Pyro. Pyro uses a Fire Blast, and it does actually hit me for some pretty intense damage. However, it's not enough to take me down, so I can use a Psycho Cut and finish it off. Listen, one who will face Lysander. I have a name, you know. It's really hurtful when I don't get called by it. We do then have the Yveltal battle, but the game doesn't let you progress unless you catch it. Therefore, I just throw the Master Ball to it. Obviously, we can't use it because it's a Dark and Flying type, but we had no choice here. We then have Lysander come out in this weird getup. Now, there's literally no explanation for why he's wearing this or why he even has it. Seriously, what are them arms supposed to do? All they have is cameras at the end. It's completely useless. All you've done is sacrifice both your eyes and ended up like Tien from Dragon Ball. Well, we better take him down. I lead with Phil as he leads with Mianshao. Now this was actually a mistake. I was supposed to be leading with Arnold, but because I accidentally went into the Yveltal battle with Phil, it ended up being him coming out. He gets hit for some pretty insane damage with an Acrobatics on the switching, even though it's not super effective against him. However, even though we've taken this damage in battle, it really doesn't matter, as we can Mega Evolve Arnold and he can Aura Sphere his way all the way to the Gyarados. The Gyarados is a touch scary with its Earthquake, therefore I decide to play it safe and bring in Phil. Phil's pretty tanky from a defensive standpoint, and that means he can come in, use one close combat, and the Gyarados is down. Lysander then ends up stubbing his toe. Now that all that's over, we have a bit of a gauntlet coming up. The battles against the other three friends that aren't rivals. The first one is Shauna, and I lead with Arnold. However, I don't want him taking damage at this point, so I switch him in to Phil. From this point, Shauna really isn't any trouble, as I just need to break all of her Pokemon and they go down. Next up, we have Tierno. And this is why I led with Arnold, as he actually leads with a Talonflame. Once I Mega Evolve, Talonflame really isn't too scary, as it only takes me 2 returns to take it out. However, at this point, we're getting a pretty high level, and I actually want him for the next battle. Therefore, I decide to bring out another Pokemon, being Ronnie. Ronnie in all his grassy goodness makes very quick work of the Crawdaunt. And then we have a bit of a back and forth between us and the Roserade, but we do eventually take it down. Finally, we have the Trevor battle, and thankfully before this, we actually get healed up. He leads with Raichu, which does paralyze us with a Nuzzle, however, it doesn't stop us from taking it out, it just meant we took a bit more extra damage. We then have the Pokemon Florges come out. Therefore, I decide it's best to bring in Jay. I go for a Swords Dance as she goes for a Confide. Obviously, we're not a special attacker, so it doesn't matter, so I use another one. And she hits us for some decent damage with a Moonblast, meaning I have no choice but to start attacking and take her out with a Poison Jab. We then have the Aerodactyl come out. Now this thing's a pretty strong Pokemon, and it's definitely faster than most. Thankfully though, I have the move Sucker Punch, a move where if they're about to attack you, you will actually attack first. This is a pretty high base power move as well, so it finishes it in 1. It was a bit scary at some times, but gauntlet over. Apparently the Pokemon Village is a secret. Now, I'm calling a bit of BS on this, as it's literally on a map. Obviously, I want to take him out for his lying ways, so we go and battle him in his gym. He leads with Abomasnow, and I decide to set up a Swords Dance. He does hit us for some pretty heavy damage with an Ice Beam, but thankfully the Sword Dance's all I need to do to be able to poison jab him out of here. Cryogonal then comes out, and this thing is actually faster than me, therefore I need to use a Sucker Punch to hit it first and take it out. After this is his Avalugg, and I use a Brick Break, and I do end up critting it. However, this really wouldn't have mattered. All he'd have done was gone for a Curse, and because I'm Sword Stance, I'd have still taken him out in 2. And with Wulfric down, that is 8 badges complete, and we're ready for the Elite Four. To begin with, though, we might as well solve this Rubik's Cube. Now, you might have noticed there was a disturbing lack of Serena. That's because, honestly, she's really easy to take on, so there is no point showing it. However, due to none of my Pokemon having Surf, and me actually only having 5 Pokemon at this time, let's see how it goes. She leads with Meowstic as I lead with my Lucario. Now, she's going to go for a Fake Out on this first turn, however, Lucario has an ability that prevents it from flinching. This makes it so I can set up a Calm Mind for free. Then, after this turn, I no longer need to keep this ability, so I can Mega Evolve while doing another Calm Mind. After that, a Dragon Pulse will take it down. After that, she sends out her Delphox. I go for a Dragon Pulse against it, and it doesn't end up killing. That's not good. She hits me with a Flamethrower, and I managed to hold on with 9 HP. Jesus Christ. Oh, at least it's slow enough where I can take it out with another Dragon Pulse. Jolteon then comes out, and this thing does have Quick Attack. However, I'm a Steel type, so it can't find a kill with it. Therefore, it opts not to use it, and I can take it out for free with an Aura Sphere. Altaria then comes out, but obviously this thing is weak to a Dragon move, so Dragon Pulse takes it down in 1. Then, all she's got left is an Absol. Now, this thing does have Quick Attack, and it won't actually take me out if it uses Quick Attack. However, it does have the ability Super Look. Super Look makes it a lot more likely that it's going to crit me. And a crit on a Quick Attack will end up taking me out, therefore I play it safe and I switch out. He really can't do much to Jay the Toxicroak, and then I can take him down with 1 Brick Break and win this battle. All that's left now though is to progress a bit further and take on the Elite Four. I decide to start with the Steel Trainer in Wickstrom, as honestly it's going to be the easiest one for us. He starts off with Klefki as I start out with Arnold. I do set up a Sword Stance with him, but I do end up getting tormented by the Klefki. This means I can't use a move twice in a row, therefore I have to alternate to using an Aura Sphere. I used Aura Sphere, a special move, as it meant that I wouldn't take it out, and I could then on the next turn set up another Sword Stance. After this, we're free to use Aura Sphere again so we can take the Klefki down. Next up we have Probopass, but I have the move Bone Rush, and I actually equipped a Wide Lens to make this thing 99% accuracy before coming into this battle. Thanks to it being a move that hits multiple times, it ends up removing the Sturdy from the Probopass to take it out. Next, he decides to send out his Aegislash. Now this thing I know is going to go for King Shield, so I set up another Sword Stance, because it's just free. After that, we can finish him off with a Bone Rush. Finally, he has his Scissor. And I can't use Earth Power against this thing, so I just go for an Aura Sphere. Luckily, it's enough to one-shot it and we win this battle. Now, I actually didn't know who to take on next. I decided the best one to do might be the Fire Chamber, so I went for it. Malva leads with a Pyroar as I lead with Dorian. Dorian goes for a Sword Stance, and I was actually expecting her to end up using Noble Roar. However, unfortunately for me, she didn't, and she used a Hyper Voice. The idea to begin with was I would Encore it into Noble Roar and use Sword Stance as it counteracts it. Unfortunately though, now we are too weak to be able to take any of her attacks other than a Hyper Voice. This means I just need to go for it and use an Acrobatics. Next up we have her Talonflame, but thankfully it's slightly slower than us, therefore I can get another Acrobatics off and one-shot it. Torkoal sponges a hit and gets knocked into the red. It just ended up using Curse though, so it barely touched us. And I know she's going to heal up, therefore I decide just to go for a Sword Stance. However, this proved to be a grave mistake. With the Curse and the defense raise it gave, she had just enough health to be able to hold on my next Acrobatics. He then hits me with a Stone Edge, which has boosted attack. But I managed to just hold on. This time, I'm taking no chances. Even though she's going to heal up, I go for an Acrobatics and take it down in 2 turns. Finally, she sends out her Chandelure, but Chandelure is nowhere near as beefy as the turtle, so we take it down in 1. Because of that Talonflame, it was actually a pretty scary Elite Four member to take on, but we did get past her. To be honest, both of the others are fairly similar to each other in terms of difficulty. Therefore, I decide just to go for Drasna. I lead with Toxicroak. and I've actually taught him a move Confide. Confide is a move that lowers the special attack of Pokemon by 1 stage. Thankfully for me, Dragalge only knows special attacks, therefore I can use 3 of them before being knocked down to the red. After this, I'm good to go and switch in Arnold. Arnold on his very first turn in sets up a substitute, and then I just Calm Mind until the point in which my substitute breaks. Now, I actually want this thing up, therefore I set up another one, but I gave myself a Citrus Berry, so at this point I do heal up a bit. And it's lucky I did, as on the very next turn, she actually gets a crit against me. This is the exact reason I chose to use the substitute, as it can take the damage. I then have to sacrifice another quarter of my HP to set up yet another substitute to stop it from taking me out. And after that, we're good to go for a Dragon's Pulse, which obviously is going to take it down. She then sends out Noivern. Now, Noivern has a move called Flamethrower. This is the reason I needed the substitute up to be able to take down the Dragalge. Flamethrower would have finished me off, so it's a very good thing I did this, as all it does instead is break my substitute as I can hit back with the Dragon Pulse for the KO. From that point onwards, we really have no worries, as I've got the speed advantage. Therefore, both of her remaining Pokemon follow the same fate as the previous 2. 3 down, the 4th one to go. Obviously, Seabold is a pretty scary guy, as he's got some pretty good Pokemon, but let's go do this. He starts off with Clawitzer, and I start off with Phil. Now, this is very similar to the previous engagement, whereas we can set up 2 Confides before he knocks us low. After this, he's using Water Pulse. This means I'm free to switch in Jay, because his Dry Skin makes it so water moves can't hit me, and Jay Confides him till he's at about -5. At this point, though, I do get a bit greedy. I normally would have switched out and substituted, but I decided to play a bit risky, and I ended up setting up 2 Swords Dances with Jay instead. Thankfully, unlike against Strasna, we managed to avoid each of these crits, and that means we can take it out with a Poison Jab. Starmie is the next one to come out, but I've not got rid of Sucker Punch yet, therefore we're safe to just take it out with one of them. Gyarados does come out and it hits an Intimidate, but at +3, we still have enough to one-shot it with a Poison Jab. After this, all that's left is Barbaracle. Now, this thing is pretty strong, but I think I'm going to be okay. Therefore, I go for a Sucker Punch. It didn't one-shot. Oh my god, it didn't one-shot. But for some reason, it went for a Cross Chop, a move I actually resist. This means I stay healthy enough to survive and can use a Sucker Punch to finish him off. Genuinely, had he used any other move here, and I would have lost my Pokemon. Although that's some pretty unbelievable luck, we did get past the Elite Four, and with no one going down. Next up, we have the Champion Battle. I actually had a foolproof plan for this. She starts off with Howlucha, and I'm going to start off with Dorian. I know she's going to Swords Dance, so I do the set. I forgot to teach it Swords Dance before the battle. What a idiot. The idea was for me to use Swords Dance as it does, and then encore it into Swords Dance. However, that thing is not possible now, therefore I need to go for an Acrobatics and knock it into the red as it does use one. I then encore just in case we've got some shenanigans going on. However, it really didn't matter as 2 more encores and the Howlucha goes down. Next up is her Pokemon Aurorus. I use Confide against it as it hits me pretty heavily with a Blizzard. I do heal up with a Citrus Berry, but it's not enough where I'm going to survive the next one. I go for another Confide and scrape by thanks to avoiding the attack. Well done, Dorian. Then, on the turn after that, it actually goes for Reflect. Now, this is brilliant for me. I can now encore it into this. This means I'm now safe to knock it to -6 in special attack. Once we've got it down, we're actually free to bring in Arnold. On the turn he comes in, we get light screened, but obviously that doesn't really matter, as the next thing I'm going to do is set up a substitute. I then Calm Mind to +6, but on the turn I get this +6, her light screen is put up again. Obviously light screen isn't brilliant, so I just use Calm Mind to stall for a few turns until she breaks my sub, in which case I take her out with an Aura Sphere. She then sends out Goodra, but I've still got Dragon Pulse on my Pokemon, therefore I one-shot her. Tyrantrum then comes out, and ideally I should have used Aura Sphere here, but I just used Dragon Pulse and it worked out anyway as we took it down. Gorgeous becomes Dead, and then out comes her Gardevoir. Now, genuinely, we've got a Dragon move and a Fighting type move. It resists the Fighting type. Obviously, Fairies cannot be touched by Dragons, so I just have to hammer away with Aura Sphere and hope it doesn't take me out. Thankfully, all it knows is special attacks. And guess what? I've raised my special defense, it doesn't manage to crit, and we have beaten Diantha. Not that I was too worried though, even if we had been crit here, we had every Pokemon in the back just to take this thing down. We really wouldn't have struggled whatsoever.